I am so excited to be watching the 1987 cult classic, Masters of the Universe. Oh, I am so pumped and... Wait a minute, the TV's not working. Well, someone took the power bar out. The TV's unplugged. Larry, was that you?
I have the power!
All right, give me that.
The power is yours, He-Mat.
Nope.
I am off to Eternia to go for a Battle Cat ride.
And this is why we can't have nice things.
I still have the power.
In a world filled with intergalactic space battles, metahuman destruction on a global scale, and psychopathic serial hauntings, there's only one team who can make sense of it all. When your world is overrun with rampant pop culture, call Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Oh, yeah.
71st Explosion!
Hey, everybody, I'm Loop.
And I'm Larry!
Hey, welcome to another edition of Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek. We're on episode 71, if you can believe it.
We are chugging along here. I think we started 2023 at like episode 6. So we're
really flying.
We are cranking them out faster than we could even talk about them. I don't even know what that means.
I don't know it either.
That's what we're doing.
But it's crazy how fast this year's flown by, because we're in December now as we're recording this, and it's just this is like been one of the fastest years I can remember.
It's true. Like I literally like the best and worst of 2022 episode that we did seems like just yesterday.
It does.
Now we're starting to plan the best of 2023 show already. I don't understand.
I don't even know. Like I'm already thinking, like, what am I going to pick for this? Like this is in my head as I'm going, and I'm like trying to get some last minute shows in before the end of the year and movies. So it's just going so quick.
Time is flying like crazy. I don't know. I don't understand it, but
how does time work?
I don't even know. I have no idea. I spend too much time thinking about that, and then my head explodes.
All right, while you're thinking about that, let's go to Top Pop.
All right.
Hey kids, it's time for Luke and Larry's Totally Tubular Top Pop!
All right, this is Top Pop, where we just talk about just cool things that are going on that we're interested in as a geek. And so I want us to start off this with a show that I have been addicted to. So I love Squid Game. Like, I love the show. It was like amazing. You watched it, right?
Oh,
like,
yes.
Yeah.
Loved it. It was.
So,
I think it made it into both of our top picks for 2022 or 2020.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, or 21 maybe was
21
that?
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whenever it came out, it was our top pick.
So now they've got Squid Game, the challenge, which is the reality version of the show, and I have to say it's awesome. Like I've been so addicted to this show, and it just ended. I've just watched the last episode, so I won't spoil anything.
No,
but
because I have not watched it yet, so no spoilers here.
Okay, the only spoiler I'm going to give, this isn't a spoiler about who wins or who's in it, but just expect it. This is the Game of Thrones of reality game shows. Like, just as you think somebody is like, they're like, oh, this is going to be the person that's going to make it to the end. Don't expect anybody don't get attached to anybody in the show. It is brutal. Like, it is cruel, and it is like twisted, and it's got games from the show that we know, but then they've got new games as well that we've never seen. And I'll just get to tell you about one game, which is like, it's not going to say who wins it or anything, but they do like a live, like full version of Battleship. They call it Warships.
Okay.
Where people are standing in boats, and it's the same, like it looks like a board, like a Battleship board game blown up into human size.
That's awesome.
The coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm like, oh my God, someone's got to do this, and people have to be able to play this because it is so cool.
That's
like,
cool. the only thing I know about this so far is I read an article not long ago. I actually didn't read it all because I was afraid of spoilers, but the headline was essentially that some of the contestants are looking at lawsuits now
Oh,
because of the physical pain and suffering that they actually went through during the show. Is that a thing? Like, is that
well,
did you see
what
that
you
being
see on screen is like, for instance, they do it starts out with the game that they start out in the show, which is the red light, green light.
right?
So it shows it like it's like they've got 5 minutes to get across this field. Well, apparently it took like 5 hours because every time they would stop, they'd have to review tape to see who moved before they can eliminate them.
Right.
So there's people that if you got yourself in a weird situation, you could drop out of it because like in a weird like
Position.
pose or something. If
Right.
like you could be literally have to hold that for 20 minutes. Like I don't know. And apparently it was freezing in there too, and they're like running through. So I don't know. There's stuff like that, but I mean that's what you signed up for. So like there's a lot of that I think that went on behind the scenes that we didn't see.
Okay.
And these
But
articles are already out there, like of stuff that happened. So
it's not that vicious when you watch it.
well, it looks vicious when you watch it, but there was stuff like that went on that we didn't see just for editing purposes and for gaming purposes, like so they could like judge it. That were cut out. Obviously, it was like kind of almost in real time for us, but for them it was like hours. And like for instance, the part they had to do that one where the person falls through the bridge.
Oh yes, yep.
Yeah, but apparently that's like what we see them falling through. That those are stuntmen. It's not the same contestants.
Oh, seriously?
Obviously, they don't want to get them hurt, right? Like they don't
Right.
want to like falling
So
and breaking their
So
arms.
they actually like cut and put a stuntman in there to fall through the.
What they probably did was played it and said, "Okay, you're eliminated." They leave, and then later on, they got people that kind of look like them, like stuntmen,
Oh.
and then they just dropped them and did whatever they needed to do. So
That's
because that's always done by a distance or from
Right.
behind, so you don't really see
Okay.
them. So, anyways, it looks cool and it's fun, and you just keeps you guessing the whole show. You don't know who's gonna make it all the way. So
Awesome.
it's
Well,
very,
I'm
it's
in.
very cool. It's just I burned through, and the cool thing that Netflix did on this one, they released the first 5 episodes, then they released the next 4 episodes, and then they released the final episode just like as we record today actually, or last night.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. So it's 8 episodes long. Is that what you're
10
saying?
altogether.
It's 10 altogether.
Five, 4, and 1.
Right,
But the cool thing when you were watching it, when I was like the final episode was released on its own, so you couldn't like burn through them all, and then like you had to actually wait for it, which I liked. I liked the way they released them. It was cool.
That's a cool idea. That's the first time I think I've ever heard of them doing that. I think that's a great idea, just to space them out. If they're not doing it one a week, then space out so that you still have to wait for the ending. So you can't just
and there's the anticipation of like of finding out who did win, and it can't really be spoiled in the way the other stuff is spoiled. So it's very cool. So definitely watch that if you haven't watched it yet. It's just so much fun. It's so good.
I am 100% watching it. So I will give you the update next time.
Excellent.
All right. So speaking of things that we're watching, I am also watching a thing that I was very excited about. We've talked about this before, how big a fan of Godzilla I am.
You're a big fan.
I love Godzilla since the time I was 10 years old, watching it on Superhost on WUAB Channel 43 Cleveland every Saturday morning. Love it. So Apple TV just a few weeks ago released Monarch, Legend of the Monsters. So it's the TV show about Godzilla, but it was getting pretty good reviews. So I went in with high hopes and anticipated a good show. And it's exceeded my expectations.
Okay.
It's fantastic. So you do have to have seen some of the new movies, specifically King Kong, the one with John Goodman, the movie that came out with John Goodman, because this show essentially starts off right where that one sort of left
off. Is that Skull Island or?
Yes, Legend of Skull Island. I think it's Legend of Skull. Yeah. It's Skull Island. King Kong Skull Island. So yeah, you kind of have to have watched that so you have an idea of what John Goodman's role was and all that. But the interesting thing is that it's more character driven than it is monster driven.
Okay.
So there's don't go in expecting like full on monster battles in every episode. And I mean, there are monsters, but it's really more about the characters which is a totally different take on it, on Godzilla, which is cool. Like it's so you really develop a connection to the people who are like looking for the monsters
Right.
essentially. So it's cool, and it also does a lot of time jumping. So it jumps between like 1973 and 1959 and 1952 and 2015. So like even within one episode, it'll jump between those various times. So it's not
Well, that's
linear.
wild.
Yeah, it's not linear, but it's just really cool. As of this recording, which is now December 6th, I think that they have done 4 or 5 episodes, so it's not finished yet. But I highly recommend it. And I feel like this is going to be the resurgence of Godzilla, because we also have at the same time Godzilla -1 movie that came out from Toho Studios, which is awesome because they're the originator of
Yeah.
Godzilla. I have not seen it yet. It is in limited release. It's not playing anywhere near us for some
Of
reason.
course. Yeah.
It's playing like in like 3 theaters in southwestern Ontario. I don't know when the wide release is coming, but currently it's running far away from us. So I have not yet, but I've heard amazing things. Apparently it's as like in the pantheon of Godzilla movies, it's right near the very top.
Okay.
So that's pretty exciting. So that plus this TV show, I feel like we're going to be seeing. Oh, and then they just released the trailer for Godzilla X Kong.
Oh yeah, I watched that one.
Yeah, I don't know how you say the X, but Godzilla X Kong, which I'm not 100% sold on. The trailer just it didn't. I was like, I'm not. I mean, I haven't been sold on the last like 5 movies either, except for the Kong, like the standalone King Kong movie,
which was good. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
I just got caught up on them all because I hadn't watched all of them. So I watched the last 2 with Millie Bobby Brown in them. So those are the last ones I think are the last 2. With the
you were not thrilled.
It's okay. I don't know.
Yeah,
you know what I find, and a friend of mine mentioned this to me, and I hadn't like really noticed it, but I kind of did in the background. Was that it's the sizing of the monsters kind of change as it goes. Like sometimes they're really huge, and sometimes they're like, it just depends what they're sitting beside. Like their sizing kind of changes up, like depending where they are. And I kind of noticed that, like it's like
interesting,
like
which is unlike the originals where it was a guy in a suit.
Yeah, so it was always in the set.
It was always
the same size. Yeah,
it was always the same size. CG, it can vary a bit. I didn't notice that. I don't know. I just am not. They just haven't grabbed me the way the originals did. But that's why I was kind of excited about this show, and I'm really excited about the Godzilla -1, which is in Japanese with English subtitles.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is pretty cool. So, yeah, I'm not sure about Godzilla X Kong. I keep saying Kong.
Godzilla. Is it Godzilla times Kong, or is it like
times Kong? I don't know. Is that?
I don't know.
Is it math equation now?
I don't know.
Times Kong? I really don't know. I haven't heard anybody actually say it out loud, so I don't know how you say the name of the movie, which is a bit of a red flag for me. Right there.
That's a bit of a problem. I'm sure it'll be fine. Kong's in it. I mean, he's doing stuff like what's that?
Yes, but it's Kong versus it's Godzilla and Kong versus like a bigger Kong or a meaner Kong. Like,
oh yeah, that Kong looks pretty mean.
I know,
and there's a baby Kong in it too, right?
There's a baby Kong. I mean, but there are so many awesome monsters in the Godzilla universe. Like bringing King Gojira or Mothra or anybody. Like I don't know why they'd have to bring in another. Like we've got Planet of the Apes. Do we need another big monkey movie?
Yeah. One Kong. That's why he's Kong. He's just like there's one of them. You don't need more Kongs.
Exactly. You know, that doesn't make any sense. Even in the olden days when they had Godzilla fighting another Godzilla, it was Mecha Godzilla. So it was like a mechanical. It wasn't like a carbon copy of Godzilla. I mean, it was until his skin ripped off and realized he was a robot. But that was cool. So unless this new Kong is a Mecha Kong, maybe it'll be a Mecha Kong. I don't know. That'd be
Did he
kinda
fight a
cool.
Mecha Kong in one of the other movies? Didn't they have like a robot Kong in one of them?
Yes, in one of the original movies, I believe so. Yeah, I think they did.
I can't remember. Or one of the ones I just watched, I thought they had like a mechanical Kong someone was controlling or something.
Maybe. See, I don't even remember these movies that well.
Yeah.
They just didn't stick with me. But anyway, so Kong, it's all about Godzilla again, and I'm very happy about it. So definitely check out Monarch on Apple TV Plus if you like the King Kongs. I mean,
the
Godzillas.
King Kongs.
No, it is.
You don't know what you're talking about anymore.
I don't even know. The whole thing has made me confused, bewildered. I don't understand it. Anyway, it's a good show. Just watch it. Okay, speaking of good shows, let's stop talking about the Godzilla Kong thing for a minute.
Okay.
I just want to talk quick. Last night, the night before we recorded this, so on December 6th, James Cameron finally released The Abyss back to theaters, but for the first time in 4K. And I didn't realize that The Abyss had never even been released on Blu-ray. Like it had only had a DVD release. So he's finally releasing it not only on Blu-ray, but in 4K. So he had a one night only showing of The Abyss in theaters across North America. And so I went to see it because I love this movie. I've watched this movie probably 6 or 7 times in my life. And I think it's great. So seeing it in 4K on a big screen was awesome. And it was also, there are 2 versions. The version that he released in theaters originally was like an hour and 20 minutes. And then there was like an extended edition that's an hour and 50 minutes. So a half an hour of extra footage. That's what they ran in the theater last night. So it was almost 3 hours long. And it's what I realize now, having watched this again on the big screen, it's essentially Titanic meets Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's really just those 2 movies put together, and that's what The Abyss is.
I'm confused too. Is The Abyss the one with Dustin Hoffman? Is there one where he goes underwater?
I think that there might be, but this is not. This is Ed Harris.
Okay, then I'm confusing this movie because I thought that was the one, because it was one.
So I got the poster. The poster came. Oh, can you see the poster?
Yeah, I can kind of see that poster.
Can you kind of see? I'm disappearing.
I can put that poster up too.
Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, you put the poster up. It came with.
So we don't have this awkward thing where you're trying to show it and we can't see it.
It really was awkward, wasn't it? No, it's Ed Harris, Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio. I'm not sure whatever happened to her. But yeah, no, this is that movie. So it's about an oil rig like crew that is commissioned by the government essentially to find a nuclear submarine that has crashed and sunk. And so they have to go find this thing, but then ultimately they discover this species of alien that's been living under the water for ever and ever. So that's what that one is. But it's just awesome. Like I think it's probably one of James Cameron's best, in my opinion. I don't know what everybody thinks about James Cameron, but I think it's one of his best. It's so exciting, the underwater stuff, and it's so claustrophobic, and it's just exciting.
Okay, so this is where my confusion comes in, because I was like, while you were doing, I was Googling this.
Yes.
So I'm thinking of The Abyss.
Yes. That's what I saw. That's what played last night.
No, sir. I'm thinking of Sphere. I'm thinking of
Sphere. Oh, right.
And it has Dustin Hoffman, and it also has Samuel L. Jackson and Sharon Stone in it.
Right. No,
so that's the one I'm thinking of. Because remember, we were talking a while ago. This is like not on the podcast, but we were talking. I said Michael Crichton wrote Abyss.
Yes,
but he didn't. He wrote Sphere.
Yes, because James Cameron wrote The Abyss. It was not.
So this is where I'm confused, because they're both underwater movies.
Oh,
and if you're underwater, you're automatically one of the two. So it's.
Right. That is true.
They came out around the same time, I think. They're very similar, because it came out in 1996. I don't know when.
The Abyss came out in 1989. Believe it or not.
Oh, did it really? Okay, so
yeah,
I'm confusing it with The Abyss, which is a totally different movie.
No, you're confusing it with The Sphere.
What? So which one's The Abyss is the one you watched?
Yes.
Sphere is the one I watched. Michael Crichton wrote Sphere.
That's right.
with Dustin Hoffman. Okay.
That's right.
Oh my God. This is going to be a whole podcast, just me figuring out which underwater movie you watched. I don't know. I'm like,
and then whether Kong is fighting itself or a Mecha Kong or a Godzilla
and
Kong.
why is a baby Kong involved? We don't know. Is baby Kong in the abyss? That is the question.
He might actually be. I'm not sure. He's definitely in the
This is
sphere,
so confusing. Why are there 2 underwater movies? Why?
I don't know.
Why does this happen? Like there should be 1 underwater movie and that's it. We don't need more than 1. Like,
no, it's true. We don't. I mean, there was, granted, there was like 8 years between them, so it's not like they came out the same day or anything. But
which one's the one with the face on the water? Is that the abyss?
That's the abyss.
Okay,
that's the abyss. The face on the water. The abyss. So what the abyss is famous for is the scene where they have this oxygenated liquid and they put a rat into a container with like liquid, like they actually really do this, and they put the rat in there and the rat actually breathes this liquid, like the liquid goes. And so then at the end of the movie, Ed Harris has to do the same thing. They put, and he has to, he in real life he did not do that, but this rat apparently really did it. So that was the thing that always stuck with me, was that they actually created a liquid that was so well oxygenated that you can actually breathe liquid in and out.
And then what did Dustin Hoffman do?
I'm just gonna shut this right down.
Okay. Don't.
We're done here.
I don't know what's going on. So confusing. And when did they win? Who won Squid Games? That was the question.
I have no idea. I don't even know what's happening anymore.
I'm aborting this whole mission and we're going to Pop Capacitor right now.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Pop Capacitor, and I just realized that Abyss and Sphere, I thought they were the same movie. So this is where my confusion came in. So wait, they're not. Okay, we're moving on.
Moving on.
And speaking of confusing, we're talking Masters of the Universe today.
Yes.
And surprisingly, I'm a big He-Man fan, and I grew up with it. I have the series, like the cartoon series on like DVD. I've never seen this movie.
No, neither have I. I don't know why I had never. I was literally shocked to hear that you had never seen this.
I think it's because there's movies that come out and you really want to see them, but then nobody else wants to see them with you, so the theater part's out. Yeah, and then just for whatever reason you've just never rented it, and then it's been years, and you're like, you keep thinking, I should watch this sometime. I should watch it. And it just never happens. That's what happened to Masters of the Universe. I just never got around to watching it.
I don't understand.
I know, and I feel like I should have seen it, and I keep watching it thinking, okay, I've probably seen this, and I don't think I ever have.
No. Well, now you have.
I have. Oh, I've seen it. All right, it has been seen.
Let's break it down. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, well, this movie came out in 1988, based on the He-Man cartoon. It was a budget of 22 million, made 17 million, so it was considered a bomb at the time. Directed by Gary Goddard. I had Dolph Lundgren as He-Man in his first sort of starring role, his first leading role. Frank Langella, I think that's how you say it, as Skeletor. Courtney Cox is in it from Friends. This is one of her first big roles. Yeah. And then it has a bunch of other Meg Foster's in it as Evil Lynn. I always like Meg Foster. Yeah. And Billy Barty's in it as well. So it's got an all-star sort of cast, or a cast at least that was half decent at the time. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Yeah. And it's basically just in a quick one-line synopsis, story of 2 teenagers who meet He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, and his friends, who arrive on Earth by chance from their home planet of Eternia and go on a mission to save the universe from their enemies, Evil Lynn and Skeletor. Yes. So a lot of this takes place on Earth, as well as Eternia. And we'll get into all this as we go through our hits and misses. And
yes, we will.
And again, this movie bombed, and it's become sort of a cult favorite for some people. It was interesting. Some things don't transfer well, and I don't know if He-Man the cartoon transfers well to screen. Maybe it could, but we'll talk about that as we do our hits and misses. So let's start it out. Larry, do you have a hit right off the top or miss?
We'll start off with a hit, and it's this is not even a real hit with the movie, but it's just it made me excited, and this is purely because when they list actors credits at the beginning of a movie, generally speaking, they do it alphabetically, but in doing that, Billy Barty got top billing.
Billy Barty's a classic actor. I love Billy Barty.
I love Billy Barty. I think he's just awesome. And it was I was literally like, not even joking. I was like, woo, that Billy Barty got his name up first. Like he got literally top billing in this movie. And I was like,
that's awesome.
He made it. He's finally made it. So I was really excited that Billy Barty got top billing. Yep. It's all downhill from here, by the way.
Okay. If that's your hit, that Billy Barty got top billing, we are in trouble.
That's it. Yeah.
I'm going to start with a miss on it. And it's around the same time period.
Okay.
So the miss is the music wasn't bad. Bill Conti did the music, who composed all the Rocky themes and everything, and did like the themes for like Dynasty and Cagney and Lacey and the original American Gladiators show. So he did the music. I don't know if you found this. The music and the opener looked exactly like Superman.
Oh, they did. Yes.
Like the way they brought in the graphics.
Yes.
Like with the tails, and the music. I thought it was the Superman theme when it first kicked in.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I actually had this as a miss as well, the soundtrack. But I had it as a miss because it sounded exactly like Star Wars to me.
It had Star Wars elements 100% in it.
There's a scene right near the beginning where Skeletor is walking into his lair, into his castle, and it is 100% the Imperial March. Like the music.
Actually, you're right. I remember that scene. I totally remember that scene.
Yeah, it is 100% the Imperial March that is playing as he's like the back. I'm like, this is a full-on ripoff of Star Wars, which was so strange to me. But yeah, so I didn't get the Superman thing. But now that I think about it, I can see where you'd hear that for sure.
Because it had that sort of like dun 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 dun,
yeah.
Like, but it was kind of like slightly changed. Like it was like the notes. It's like when you get those discs, those CDs that have like music that's like the canned music.
Yeah,
and it's like in the style of that's what it was kind of like. It was the style of Superman. Like it was like so it kind of sounded like it and what, but wasn't.
It did, and then you had the same thing with Star Wars. I feel like the filmmakers were like, we want to make this a Star Wars Superman mashup. That, based on a franchise that's already existing. How can we do that?
I feel like I read somewhere that they kind of like threw this movie out as if it was a Star Wars-esque movie. Like it's gonna kind of catch on like a Star Wars would.
Yes,
so
100%.
And it did not, by the way. It did not catch on at all.
Well, can I just lead right into one of my misses then? This perfectly leads into one of my misses.
Yeah.
Is the Star Wars ripoffs all the way through it. So at one point they even refer to measures of distance as parsekions. Like parsecs. They're called parsekions. Come on, really? There were bounty hunters that Skeletor employed to go capture He-Man, and the scene where Skeletor is talking to the lineup of bounty hunters is exactly the same scene as we see. I thought
that too.
It's exactly the same scene that we see in Star Wars where he's talking to, or Empire Strikes Back, I guess, where he's talking to Boba Fett and Dengar and Zuckuss and all of those about going to find Han Solo. It's exactly the same scene. So there's that one. His Skeletor's henchmen look exactly like stormtroopers, but in black. So they're wearing a stormtrooper outfit, but in black. And not to spoil the ending, but Superman, Skeletor dies at the end, or at least we think he does, and he dies by getting pushed down a ventilation shaft, exactly the same way that Darth Vader pushed the Emperor down the ventilation. Literally exactly the same scene. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, they're not even being subtle about their nods to Star Wars. These were literally scenes ripped right from that movie.
And Billy Barty was like the R2D2 of
Yes.
the
It was more like an Ewok, actually.
yeah, his head very Ewokish. Like,
Yes. But yeah, I was so blown away by how blatant they were in ripping off Star Wars in this movie. Like
the there's
Oh,
one thing I'll add to that, because this was a miss for me, was the guards themselves, like Skeletor's
yeah,
guards, which were called Air Centurions or something.
right.
They look like rip-offs of stormtroopers 100%.
Yeah.
And and there always seemed to be like, they'd show like the bad guys, and there'd be like maybe, let's say, 10 of them, of these guards, but all of a sudden, like, they're constantly coming in, like as if there's
Yeah.
like 100 of them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where'd all these extra guards come from? There's like constantly like these guards were just everywhere.
Yeah.
And like it was terrible. Like, I don't know what was going on, but they're very product of the 80s, like the generic henchman sort of idea, where there's just, they all kind of look the same, and there's just hundreds of them to just for the good guys to take out, essentially.
Well, and I feel like it's a really cheap way to make a movie, because you really only need like 10 extras in these outfits, and then they just like leave the set and walk back in the door again, and then there's
And
10
just keep
more.
reusing them.
You just keep reusing the same 10 extras over and over again, because
I've done that, so I know exactly what
Exactly.
I've made like my own movie in high school, and we did the same thing. We had their faces were covered, so you just keep using the same ones. One of my hits in this
All right.
was Frank Langella as Skeletor.
Yeah.
To me, he was in a totally different movie than everybody else. Like,
Yeah.
makeup and stuff aside, I mean, I'll give them like the look of him, because it was the time period. They didn't have the special effects, weren't quite as good.
Right.
But I thought the makeup was actually, at first I was like, oh my God, that looks terrible. But then as the movie went on, I thought, it's not that bad. It's like actually pretty decent for a skeleton face that like talked.
Yes.
But I thought he himself was in a totally different movie, and he gave it his all in this movie.
Yeah.
And I thought he was great. Like, I thought he was actually one of the few actors in this that were actually like putting it all into it. And I give him full credit, because if it wasn't for him playing Skeletor in this, like, it would have been really terrible. I watched a little interview with him, like on a timeline of his like career, of him talking about different movies. And he talked about this movie specifically. And he said he did it because his grandson was a big fan of Skeletor and He-Man. And he said it was one of his favorite roles. Like, even though he knows the movie's not great, but he said it was one of his favorite roles to do, because he could put his all into it and give some character to Skeletor. And I totally believe he did. I thought he was fantastic in this.
It's so funny they say that, because Skeletor was one of my hits too.
Yeah.
I don't have many hits, but that was a hit. And for me, it was not only just the acting, but they actually made him evil. Like, he was like pure unadulterated evil. Like, he was like threatening to kill people. He was like mean to his own people. He insisted on people obeying him and following him. Like, he was pure evil. Like, there was no question that this was the bad guy in the universe.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to, if you're talking about evil characters in sci-fi movies, he would rank right up there near the top, because he was like, he wasn't, like you said, he did not hold back. Like, he was 100% bad guy. And
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. Like, you're right. I really enjoyed watching him, and just because everything he did was just so over the top and bad, which is what he was supposed to do. So
yeah, and he played it the way I think he should have played it, and it was great. There's a couple people that I thought were like actually standouts in it. It was him. I really like Meg Foster's Eva Lynn. I thought she was great.
Yeah.
And even Courtney Cox was good in the role she had. Like, she was fine.
She was
And I like the police chief too. I liked that guy as a character actor. I
Yes.
can't remember, his name's escaping me. I think I have it here.
He's in everything in the 80s. Now I can't remember. Like, I should have looked a little bit deeper into what he had done. Can you look him up?
It's James Tolkan. So it's Tolkan. He was
Okay,
Detective Hugh Lubick. I don't know what else he's been in, but he's one of those guys you've seen in a lot of different things. And he usually plays a cop or somebody kind of like angry at the world, but I like him. I thought he was actually kind of, he had fun with it. He actually had like a bit of tongue-in-cheek sort of like performance of this.
Yes.
And it was fun. Like, I thought he was a lot of fun in it. So
I agree. I think it was the direction of the movie that made it bad, because there were some standout performances. Like, they're people, they seemed to bring their A game to this project, even though it was kind of a garbage project. They did, and I think that's the only thing that saves it. And I think that's probably part of what makes it a cult favorite, is that these particular characters are fun to watch. So at least there's that. Because
it's so ridiculous that it's like the whole movie's so ridiculous. I can see why it had a cult status. But I'm out of hits, by the way. That was my last hit for this.
Okay, well, I've got a couple more.
Okay.
I just want to say, when we're talking about actors, Dolph Lundgren, not a great He-Man.
I'm gonna get into He-Man. That's one of my misses. I'll give you that in a second.
We'll get there in a minute. All right. So I'll okay, let's talk about a miss. I've got a couple more hits. We'll save a hits.
Okay.
So here's one of my biggest misses.
Okay.
Like, literally, this is like my biggest miss of the whole thing. I am not a fan of movies that are supposed to be like a genre movie, like sci-fi or fantasy or something like that take place in their own universe, that somehow make it to Earth in present day.
It's a real trope.
I have a problem with that. That happens, like it happened in, like, recently in the Smurfs. Remember, they tried to relaunch the Smurfs, and then they ended up in, like, New York City and whatever, and in the real world. And I don't know, for some reason, like, if I'm going to see a fantasy,
even Star Trek did that too. One of the Star Trek movies, they end up on Earth. They end up back in time on Earth.
That's right. Yes.
Sort of the fish out of water sort of situation. Even like Friday the 13th, when he goes to New York. Like, it's just like,
right.
I mean, it's realistic that he could, but at the same time, it's just a fish out of water sort of story.
And that's what it is. But I guess for me, if I'm going to see a fantasy or a sci-fi movie, I want to be immersed in their world, like in a world that I've never seen before. I don't need to see He-Man in Los Angeles or whatever. Like that, I was just like, come on, really?
Maybe in a third movie or something, but not like at the beginning.
For me, it's a cheap way to keep it's a way to keep the movie cheap. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't have to create like 2 hours worth of another universe if 90 minutes of the movie is just in downtown New York, where they're shooting location in those places. They save a heap of money by not having to build sets or use CG or matte painting in this case, or any of those things, because they just shoot it at locations that actually exist. It's just a cheap way of doing it, and it takes me out of that whole realm. Like, I'm gonna link this with one of my hits. So that's the big thing. I just hate that trope, like that whole fish out of water, coming to the real world in our time, wearing the costumes and the outfits that they would wear in their universe. And the hit that I had with this was before they went through the portal and made it to New York or to Los Angeles, wherever they were in the States. The set designs in Eternia, it's Eternia, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Were cool. I thought the place looked actually really cool. The design of Castle Grayskull was really cool. Like it looked really fantastic, like fantasy wise. It looked really cool, and the sets were huge, like in the interiors of Skeletor's palace and all that. And then the exteriors, the matte paintings were really cool. Like it felt like that classic 80s sci-fi. And I was like, this is actually going to be pretty cool. Because I hadn't seen it before, I didn't realize that they go to modern day America and spend most of the movie there. So for a while, like for the first 15 minutes of the movie, I was pretty into it. I was like, this is going to be super nostalgic and look really cool. And then all of a sudden, nope, we're in a music store on, in downtown Los Angeles, and now it's nothing. Now it's just a bunch of guys who had rented costumes and are parading around in their their shoulder pads and their suspenders. And anyway, so I love the actual on planet look. Did not like that they had to come to the States.
100%. I'm gonna do a miss, and it is like a major one for me, and it's He-Man himself. So there's a lot of things to unpack with He-Man. I thought this is the one thing I don't like about this movie, is that they don't really explain what Eternia is. They don't really fully explain what's special about He-Man.
No.
Like, they don't, he doesn't really seem to have anything going. Like in the cartoon, he's like the prince,
Yes.
And then when he uses the sword, he turns into He-Man, who's like super strong and everything. This guy just walks around as He-Man all the time, and I don't know what's like special about him, like why He-Man is like why Skeletor hates He-Man so much, and why, and they like little like bits and pieces, but they don't really get into like why He-Man's He-Man, like why he's so much like more special than Man at Arms or like Tila or whatever. They don't really get into that.
No.
And in fact, you probably don't even know who Man at Arms' name was.
No, well, they didn't say it. Like his name is Duncan, isn't it?
Yeah, but in the show, he's Man at Arms. That's his name.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the royal guard, like the main like top royal guard or whatever. And Tila's his daughter, but that's not really even brought up till like later in the movie as well. So there's these characters, and they don't really explain who they are. And He-Man's just sort of, so I don't really care about He-Man. Like, what's his powers? Like, is he super strong, which you kind of see bits and pieces of? Like,
but not really. Like, I mean, he fights, but Man at Arms was fighting too, and Courtney Cox was fighting.
Yeah, like there was
he was
nothing
about as strong as Courtney Cox.
Like there was just nothing like really super special about him. Like there was nothing like that was like, oh, this guy's like way more strong, like stronger than everybody else, or like he could do one punch and knock 10 guys over at the same time. Like there was nothing about him that was like super special. Like I don't know. It just wasn't explained. The world wasn't explained and set up. It was kind of like you're jumping in like you know who these characters are, but even at that, He-Man wasn't the He-Man we know from the cartoon. So it really made no sense, like why he was so important to Skeletor.
It really didn't, and I think that's probably why the box office numbers are the way they are, because if you weren't a fan of the cartoon and didn't know the cartoon, you would have no idea who this guy is, like you said, or care about him, and so word of mouth would have gotten out. Like, don't bother, because you're not gonna care about any of these people.
Yeah, and they don't really explain who the sorceress is, and they don't explain what her significance is really. Like it was just he knew she had powers of some sort, and he had her like Skeletor had her captured, because in the TV show she's much younger in that as well, and so it's like just there were some things that were very confusing to me right off the top. And also, why doesn't he wear a shirt through most of the show? Like I know he doesn't really in the other one either, but it just like made zero sense in this, why he was like running around with no shirt on, and everybody else has full costumes. Like,
well, and this goes back to one of that miss that I had with the whole crew coming to the States, is that not once did anybody even question the way anybody was dressed. Like they were being chased around by the police, and the police didn't ever question why this half-naked guy with like shoulder pads and like S&M gear is wandering the streets. Like nobody questions it. They look so out of place in the United States, and not a single person says, who is that guy? Like why are you dressed like, or no, and nobody even made an attempt to try to fit in. Like they didn't, you know what I mean? Like He-Man didn't say, oh, we're in a different, I should try to blend in so I can fade.
Yeah, there was none of that. It was just sort of like they're just running around as they are, and these like bounty hunters that are all basically monsters, like Beastman and that they're just running around, and no one questions it. Like I mean they're like, or even like blown away by these, like it's just so weird.
It didn't make any sense that nobody questioned why these people were even there. Like, or even fazed by the fact that they were there. It was that didn't make any sense to me at all. All right, so I'm gonna give you another hit. Okay, so we haven't talked about this yet, but the whole premise of the movie essentially is that Billy Barty's character, whose name is Gwildor, he literally looks like a little hobbit kind of
like a troll almost, or something, or like a
is a professional locksmith, for lack of a better term. He actually says that at some point, and he's created this thing called the Cosmic Key, which when you activate it, opens up portals that you can go anywhere in the universe. Anyway, so Skeletor has one, and he didn't realize that Billy Barty's character Gwildor had a second one, and Skeletor wants it. So anyway, so he's created this cosmic key, and the cosmic key is like a big long cylindrical thing with with like forks on it that spin open and they turn and they do all kinds and there's tons of buttons. I thought that thing was cool.
As a device, it was cool.
As a
like the way they,
device,
yeah.
yeah,
As a
I
prop,
was like,
as a prop, it was
as an
kind of
actual
neat.
physical prop because it like it was a mechanical device. Like it wasn't CG. It was a real mechanical device that they created that had all these spinning fork like devices in layers up and down it, and then all these little buttons on it, and then the buttons also made music. And I didn't really understand this part of it, but when you press these buttons in random orders, it sounds like a synthesizer, which plays into it a little later. And I don't understand why it had to make music, but anyway. But the device itself was really cool. Like if somebody created one of those that was for sale, I'd probably buy one. It was a really cool prop, is what I'm saying essentially.
Yeah.
And I liked every time they used it. I found it really cool to watch. So that kept me intrigued because I liked seeing the cosmic key do its little open up and spin and make synthesizery sounds and lights. And I thought it was pretty. Plus, it had a shoulder strap, so you could like toss it over your shoulder.
Oh God!
Around with you.
See, I had that as a miss, not the key itself, but
Okay.
I thought the plot was lame. Like I thought this whole
yeah.
like it's like, what Skeletor? Why does he need both the keys? And then he gets them, and then they beat him. It's like as they say, it's like they easy to defeat, barely an inconvenience. Like he was like, but he was like super powerful. Like his whole costume changed when he got them. He all of a sudden became like. But the thing is, he didn't even know the second one existed. Like he didn't know this was like going to do this. And then and actually, there's a goof in it. I found, like, I read this, that when they have the key originally, when they first meet Billy Barty, and he has the key, and then they escape and like hide. The guys come in and go, they're like, go look for the key. They didn't know about the key yet because Skeletor didn't know about it, but they're looking for the key, but they didn't even know it existed. So it was like the henchmen didn't know, because Skeletor told them about it because he didn't even know it existed. But they were like looking for it specifically, like, so there was some sort of mix up in that scene. I don't know what happened there, but
I don't know. That whole idea was really convoluted. I don't understand. You're right. I don't understand why he needed two keys. He already had one, so he could go wherever he wanted in the universe. I don't know. And then, like you said, when he had both keys together, he became like Golden Skeletor. Like literally, his costume, he had like horns on his head. He could like shoot lasers out of his eyes. But
they defeated him in like 2 seconds. Like it wasn't even like anything to defeat him.
But how would, you're right, like how would he possibly have known that was what was going to happen when he got both keys? Because this Gwillador, Billy Barty, just made them in his little hovel. Like he lived in like a little hobbit hole, and he just created them in his little workshop there. Like they weren't like this legendary. Like if they had been around for like eons, like, do you know what I mean?
And then lost in some battle or something. And
so there was some prophecy about if you got both keys together, you'd be like the most invincible thing in the universe. No. That would have been something. But literally, Billy Barty just made them on his bench in his workshop, and then just happened to have a second one. And why would Billy Barty make two products or two devices that when you put them together you become evil? Like why would he have done that?
it just made no sense. Like it was just like, I'm like, what is happening in this?
They were literally just keys. Like that's what they were. He was a locksmith. They were keys so that you could unlock a portal to a different dimension. Why would you put two keys together and then become like this like super being?
I don't know what was going on half the time in that movie. I really didn't know.
I don't know. But all I could tell you was the actual prop is really cool.
Yeah.
I really
Thank God.
Yes. Okay, what have you got?
I've got one more miss.
All right.
And then I'm done. I found the battles in this. So there's a bunch of battles and a bunch of times when like the bad guys have to fight the good guys, and the Air Centurions are fighting them, and whoever it is. The battles were all super clunky. Like every battle was weird. And it almost looked like they're like told the actors, okay, hide behind this and you're just shooting, but you're not going to see what you're shooting at. You're just going to shoot. And half the time they looked like totally like they weren't into it. Like Tila at one point is just sort of like barely using her gun and just sort of like pretending to shoot, but not even like she's in a real battle. She's just sitting there going boop boop boop, like just like, and they're like they didn't look like they were even like part of any of the, like they just look like they're in a different movie fighting. Like everything was just so clunky looking, and it didn't look very like well like choreographed, and people were bumping into each other and falling and like over other people, and it was just terrible. Like
It was the fight. I mean, that should have been a big part of the movie because there was a lot of fighting in there, and it was just boring. Like it was
yeah,
just
it just
like,
looked like sometimes they were isolated from the like they shot it later. Like, so we'll just have you hiding behind these pillars and
you
shooting.
know,
Like,
yes,
but they're not actually shooting at the same time. Like it's just a different scene. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It was like the choreography in these fight scenes were terrible. Like it was
Yeah.
just it was just a bunch of people. I think at one point when one of these Centurions fell over another one, like it was just like they just didn't know where they were. I don't know how well they could see out of those masks. Like they were just sort of like running around.
I don't think they could at all. No, I agree. I agree. All right, I've only got one more. This is
Okay.
it. This is it for me. And interestingly enough, it's very similar to a miss that we had in our last show when we were talking about Mac and Me,
Okay.
where right at the very end of the movie, they put up a like before the movie even finished, they put up a Mac will be back or Mac will
God.
return notification to let you know that there's a sequel coming. They did the same thing with this. After there was a post-credit scene. I don't know if did you watch right to the end?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I saw
Okay,
it.
so right at the end, at the very end, after Skeletor had plummeted down this ventilation shaft, like the Emperor did, at the end of the credits, there's a pool of liquid, and he comes up through the liquid. You see his head, and he says something like, "I'll be back," or like literally, like "I will return,"
Yeah.
implying that stay tuned. There's going to be a sequel coming. Not realizing, like it's just a cocky move, just making the assumption that that you're going to have such a beloved movie that people are going to want
Yeah.
a sequel. I mean, don't do that with a brand new franchise that you haven't tested the waters with yet until you see what the audience does, and then announce a sequel. But don't
Like
put it in the movie.
like James Bond can do that. Like James Bond will
Yes.
be back or return.
Yes.
Because we know he will. Like because he's like
That's
it's a beloved franchise. This
Well,
was like barely made it through the movie. Like if I would have edited this and thought, oh my God, like I can't put this at the end. Like this scene
yes.
cannot exist. Like
No, well, and even Bond, like I don't think that they did the Bond will return for the first few movies. Like I don't think
it wasn't until later.
Yeah, so you don't do that in the very first of a movie like this. But because once it's in the movie, it's in there for all time. So now, all these years later, we're still seeing that Skeletor's coming back. And yeah. So it's the same thing that Mac and Me did. It's the curse of the assumed sequel.
Yeah. Well, apparently I read that the sequel is supposed to be called Master of the Universe 2 Revenge of the Beast. That was supposed to be,
Really?
and it never happened. I don't know if the script was written, but it just never went anywhere, and that was it at the end.
Because it lost millions of dollars, and it was a terrible movie.
And I heard like I think it was Canon that put this out. Like it actually went under after this movie, and there was another movie they put out as well. I know I shouldn't be laughing at that, but there was another movie that came out, Superman 4.
Yeah,
like the Quest for Peace or whatever, that bombed as well. So I think it was because of all those, like it just couldn't, like it just bombed.
See, they cursed themselves by making the assumption that they will be back for another sequel. If they just hadn't done that,
it would have been fine.
Just quietly, people would have quietly forgotten about the movie and moved on and everything. But everybody's like, oh man, they're coming back again. I'm out. I don't want to see any more canon movies. Yeah. That's it. That's all I got. I mean, we could go on and on about.
Oh yeah, it has to be seen to be believed, I think. But
well, if you do want to see this movie, it is running for free on Tubi. That's where we watched it. So you can watch it for free. And it's the whole thing is there. So you don't even have to pay for it. Just download the free Tubi app and there you go. You really should see it if you haven't, because it's quite something.
Yeah, like do you think this stands up?
I don't think it ever. Well, no. Okay. So I don't know. It doesn't stand up. If for people who have never seen it before, it won't stand up. But I honestly think that if I had seen this movie in 1988, when I was like 17 years old, I might have thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like back in the day, because the special effects were, for its time, they were what they were, I guess. I mean, great. I mean, The Abyss came out 1 year later, and the special effects were infinitely better. But
Yeah.
it was still kind of a cool, like when you're a teenager in the 80s. I feel like it could have been a cool movie, so it probably would stand up for people who grew up with it, you know, and who loved it back in the day. But if you haven't seen it before and this is your first time,
Yeah, like I don't know if it like it stands up. I mean, it's interesting to watch. It's like an interesting like what not to do from like another property, like how to make a movie.
Yeah.
Like and I find a lot of movies made based on cartoons just don't work. Like G.I. Joe's a good example. Like it's just they try and it's like and sometimes it's like they kind of do okay, but this one was just one that just wasn't good. A couple things that were like I think Mattel also got really involved in this movie and kind of ruined some of it as well. Like He-Man, it wasn't supposed to do anything but good things. Like he couldn't like kill anybody. He could, you know, the things that you would have as if that's your toy line. But I think the only reasons to see this again is Skeletor. And it's kind of neat seeing and Billy Barty. It's kind of neat seeing Courtney Cox in a movie before Friends. Like if that's like it's neat to see people like in like Jennifer Aniston and like Leprechaun, you know, before they became big stars. So for that purpose alone, it's kind of neat to see. Like, but I like as far as an actual movie, it's kind of garbagey.
Yes. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember hearing even one time by the power of Grayskull.
He says
I have the power. He says,
Yeah.
I have the power, but I don't think they ever said by the power of Grayskull. Did they?
No, I don't know. They didn't. They never did explain why he picked up the sword and it had powers anyways. Like that wasn't really like part of anything. So
sorry, I should have talked about that earlier, but I just wanted to clarify. So if you're tuning it in to see the by the power of Grayskull, you're not going to hear that.
You're not going to see like Battle Cat. You're not going to see Orko. You're not going to see half the characters from He-Man aren't in this. Like it's very limited of the characters that you'll see. But I understand why they wouldn't want to put too many in, but at least try to make them look like the characters, like as best you can, like at the very least.
I honestly thought, because when I heard that Billy Barty was in here, I thought he was going to be Orko.
That's what I thought too.
Oh,
but
cool.
Maybe
like he has a similar voice. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. He's going to be Orko. But then thinking about it, in 1988, he would have had to float around.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to.
I don't know how they would have done that without like chroma keying him in every scene.
I'm pretty safe to say they wouldn't have been able to do that based on this movie.
They would not, which is unfortunate. But
based on only that scene where he's on the flying, there's a scene where he's on I don't know what that is. it's like a hovercraft or something, or like a stand-up hover thing. And it was so badly chroma keyed. I was like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah. Not a good movie.
No, we'll put that behind us. We've seen it and it's been seen, and it exists. So if you want to see it. So thank you so much for watching this episode or listening to this episode. Again, check out our socials, and we'll see you hopefully another episode this month.
We've got our next one is our big holiday special. We've got a pretty fun thing coming up, so you'll want to stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we got something set up for that too. So thank you for listening or watching, and we'll see you next time on Loop and Larry, Guardians of Geek.
Bye-bye.
Produced by Matthew C. Loop and Lawrence Simner. A Loop and Larry production.
Bueller.
He likes it. Hey, Mikey.
Bueller.
Bad news. Fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Inconceivable.
Brian's right. It's an elf.
Wax on.
Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Wax off.